on a video conferencing policy. To present that issue, I'll ask our General Counsel, Bethany Persky, to proceed.
Yes, good morning. The New York State Public Officers Law was recently amended to allow for video conferencing in open meetings. The new law allows for members of public bodies, such as the Campaign Finance Board, to participate in meetings from private locations through video conference, provided that a quorum of the members attend the meeting in person at a location accessible to members of the public. Today, following a public hearing, the board will vote to adopt a resolution and written procedures for meetings held using video conferencing. As you can see, today's meeting is being held remotely as permitted by the executive order suspending portions of the open meetings law, which was recently extended through August 13th. As long as that state of emergency remains in effect, the board may continue to hold remote meetings. The policy adopted today will be observed for meetings held after the state of emergency expires.
So shall I read the resolution?
Yeah, the resolution will be posted on our website, but you could read it out if you would like.
No, that's okay. Then I'll just, I move that we adopt the proposed resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, just if I may, do we need to request public comment at this point?
I guess yes, we do. You're right. Is there any member of the public want to testify on this matter of the video conferencing policy?
If you wish to speak, just use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen and we will promote you into the panel.
There seems to be no.
Matt, do you agree that there is no one who's raised their hand?
I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Okay, very good. So once again, I move the adoption of our proposed resolution concerning video conferencing. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the motion carries. Thank you. The next item of business on our agenda is the adoption of the draft minutes for the April 14th meeting. I move their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. The next item on the agenda are the opening remarks of the chair. So good morning again. Due to last minute scheduling changes, let me just get this in front of me so I'm not looking at the side. Hang on a sec. Good. Due to last minute scheduling changes in May and June, this is the first board meeting we've held since April, so I'm glad to welcome everyone back. Today, the board will vote on violations and penalties for one independent spender from last year's citywide election and for two candidate campaigns, one from the 2017 election cycle and the other from a city council special election. During the first half of the year, the board has completed enforcement action against several independent spending groups. We have moved through the independent spender enforcement more rapidly because the scope of our review process for those groups is relatively narrow. There are no public funds to audit, and we address only disclosure violations. While we anticipate more enforcement against independent spenders in the future, the focus of our meetings will begin to shift to candidate campaigns later this year. The audit process is underway as campaigns have begun responding to our CFB requests for documentation and other requirements. We appreciate the diligent efforts that CFB staff and campaign treasurers will make to complete this important work in the coming months. I also want to remind campaign treasurers of tomorrow's filing deadline. Campaigns for city council elections in 2023 and the full cycle of elections in 2025 must disclose campaign finance activity to the CFB before midnight on Friday. Campaigns in 2020 and 2021 elections are also required to file reports this week. We expect that more than 500 campaigns will submit reports by the deadline. All filings will be published to our website on a rolling basis on Friday through Saturday morning. We are halfway through the primary election summer of 2022. I'm happy that we are joined by our Voter Assistance Advisory Committee Chair, Zoilo Torres, for an update on the work in our NYC Votes campaign during this busy season. Zoilo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everyone. As you all know, we had a post-election hearing on June 29th, during which we received many comments, very interesting comments, very important comments that we will be forwarding to you as soon as possible. Some of the feedback we heard had to do with the poll sites and the last minute changes at the poll sites that many voters complained about. We also a lack of information about the candidates that many voters mentioned, or those who testified at the post-primary hearing commented on. And also there were some comments regarding the low turnout. Now, we are preparing for the next primary, which is on August 23rd. And as you all know, it involves congressional members as well as state Senate candidates. We will be issuing a voter guide which will be available early in August. And basically those are the two or the major points that I wanted to report on today. And I want to thank Mr. Chair for giving us the opportunity and the space to make this very short report. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoilo. Next, I call on our Executive Director, Amy Lopres, for an announcement. Amy?
Thank you. I apologize in advance. My internet connection seems unstable, but hopefully I won't be cut off. I wanted to announce that after 16 years of being the Executive Director of the Campaign Finance Board, I will be retiring in early October. Over these 16 years, we have accomplished so much. Our public financing program is the envy of the nation. We just completed the largest election in the city's history. We had a greatly expanded matching funds program where more than $126 million was distributed to more than 300 candidates. And what has that meant is that we have a breathtakingly diverse city council, which for the first time is majority female. I'm very proud of the role that the CFB and the public funds played in creating that diverse council. Over the past 16 years, we have also expanded the CFB's mission in very significant ways. We implemented a strong pay-to-play contribution limits. We established the strongest independent disclosure requirements in the country. We vastly increased our voter education mandate, taking a lead in the rollout of ranked choice voting. Currently working on the new city-only voting initiatives and expanding language and accessibility mandates. Of course, we didn't do this all on our own. This was done in close partnership with many around the city, with the city council, whose legislation we implemented, and our friends in good government advocacy groups who supported us and held us accountable. I'm so proud of the CFB staff has managed the growth. We've put in place new budgeting and finance processes, audit risk-based analysis for performing our audits, more rigor and data analysis for decision-making, new technology project priority setting procedures. And with 2021 in our rear window, we are now working on a 5-year strategic plan. I have enjoyed my work at the CFB and have found it incredibly satisfying. In fact, working at the CFB and leading its mission of improving New York City's democracy has been the greatest honor and privilege of my life. I end with the biggest election in the history of the program and the issuance of our post-election report. As for the next steps, the board is conducting a wide-ranging national search befitting our nationally recognized agency. I will be assisting the board in its search and as it makes its hiring decision. As the act says, the board will be making the decision on who is the new executive director. However, I will work with the board and the staff to ensure that there is a smooth transition for all of our stakeholders. Thank you very much. You are on mute, yes. And I have lost this meeting.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, you're muted.
Here we go.
Rick, you are muted.
Yep. All right. I guess we're muted. Somebody.
Looks like we had some technical difficulties with a couple of folks, and they're trying to rejoin right now. So
I am so sorry. I don't know if you heard my whole report.
No,
yes,
last
we did.
I got lost in the middle, so it was hard to tell. But I had to rejoin, and the chair is in the process of rejoining the meeting.
Yes, he's coming in now.
All right, so I'm back, and Amy, you were there, I think, for your full statement, and I got lost just at the end there, so I am now back. Okay, thank you very much, and on behalf of the board, I'd just like to say what a pleasure it has been working with Amy over these years. She has done an amazing job going back long before my tenure, but during the years that I've been here, which I guess is approximately 5 now, a little over 5. She's just done a phenomenal job, and I believe she leaves the agency in very good shape. And we thank her for her service and wish her all the best in her retirement.
Thank you.
Agreed.
We in the back concur with the comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have 3 enforcement matters before us today, for which I think one, there's going to be an appearance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And that relates to the entity Build New York Fund. And
Is Mr. Grando? Yes, I see him here. If he
good. And I see Mr. Grando is muted, and I don't see his video. I'm going to wait a minute in case he wants to finish logging on, but he doesn't have to put a picture up if he doesn't want to. Okay, there you are. I see you're unmuted now. So the way it's going to work, Mr. Grando, is I'm going to ask the staff of the CFB to just briefly tee up what the issue is before us. Then I'll give you an opportunity to say whatever you'd like to say. There may be some back and forth. There may be some questions from the board. And when we've exhausted those, we'll be done. The board will then go into deliberations on this and 2 other matters, at the end of which we'll come back into open session and report on our decision. All right. Let's see, Timothy, are you going to be presenting or teeing up the issue for us? Why don't you proceed?
Mr. Schaefer. Good morning. My name is Timothy Judy, Associate Counsel for the CFB. Appearing with me today is Kyle Kennedy, an Independent Expenditures Analyst at the CFB. Before the board this morning is the matter of the Build New York Fund, an independent expenditure committee in the 2021 primary election. CFB staff recommends the board find the Independent Expenditure Committee committed to following violation of the Act and board rules: failure to file. Independent spenders must report all covered communications and associated expenditures in the earliest disclosure filing occurring after both the communication is published and reportable expenditures are incurred. In the case of daily disclosure, filing is considered failed if not submitted within 3 days of its due date or by 2 days before the election day, whichever is earlier. On July 13th, 2021, the spender filed the July periodic disclosure statement reporting a mass mailing communication that was distributed on June 16th. This communication was subject to the daily disclosure requirements and should have been reported on June 17th. Because the communication was not reported by the deadline, voters were not able to learn about it until after the June 22nd primary election. The Independent Expenditures Committee contests this violation and penalty.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Grando, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the time. I think this really is just a matter of two issues from my point of view, and I've had this conversation with Tim leading up to this. The position I take is that, and I provided Tim the backup material that showed I was fully aware of the daily disclosure requirement. I had discussed it with my client, ensuring that I had received all the information necessary from the client to make the filing in a timely manner. I attempted to make that filing. As far as I knew, the filing had been made. I've asked him to provide me an audit log that would show the keystrokes of the submission. He has not done that. What I have received from both Tim and Kyle is that they have searched their records and the information and the data was saved into the system in a timely fashion, but not submitted until the July 15th periodic report was done. I have no way of contesting that without access to the actual audit log to see what the keystrokes were. As I said, the information and data was input. The intention was to submit it. I don't know whether or not it was my fault for hitting save or the system's fault for not properly processing it upon submission. That's the factual point of this. And there's no way that in a situation like this, in a hearing like this, and I've been doing compliance for close to 15 years as a consultant, and I used to run the New York State Lobby Commission for 10 years before that. So I'm fairly familiar with the various compliance systems. And I was at the Lobby Commission when we instituted one of the first electronic filing systems in the nation. They make mistakes, glitches do occur. Again, I'm not saying it happened in this case. I wouldn't be able to testify to that without access to the audit log. Having said that, to me, it's clear that there was no intention, and Tim was very eloquent in pointing out that in his belief, your statute doesn't provide for intention, it's just the actual result. I disagree with him. I think the statute actually clearly shows that there is discretion available to this board in determining the amount of the fine. And to say that you're just going to routinely and rotely impose the maximum fine effectively says that the board becomes a vestigialist appendage. There's no reason for it if you're not going to take a look at the fact and circumstances surrounding the potential violation. Here, I think it's very clear that there was no intent to try to avoid disclosure. If anything, the disclosure was clearly intended to be made. And I think that there should be some element of discretion by this board in the amount of the fine that you impose. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'm going to come back in a moment to the question of discretion, Mr. Grando, but first I'd like to ask Timothy to respond if you have any response to the purely factual part that was the beginning of Mr. Grando's presentation.
Certainly, Chair Schaefer. As far as any sort of key log of users, we don't keep track of that sort of user data in the Independent Expenditure Disclosure System. So the reason that hasn't been provided is because it doesn't exist. Because Mr. Grando indicated that he thought that he had entered the data early and we did never get the report, our special compliance unit did research on whether or not that seemed to be the case. And what they found was that indeed, Mr. Grando entered the data on June 16th, but there is no record that he ever clicked the button in the system that would have resulted in a filing until the July 13th periodic disclosure. And as far as technical glitches on that day, on June 16th, we had 25 reports successfully submitted, 16 were new daily disclosures. On the 17th, the day that the report was actually due, there were 19 additional filings, 14 of which were new daily disclosures. None of the other spenders who were filing on those days reported any issues, technical or otherwise, and we have no evidence that any technical issue occurred in this case.
Okay. With respect to the discretion issue, Mr. Grandau, I feel a little bit like the rabbi in the old joke who says you're both right. I think Timothy is right that the statute doesn't require any bad intent. The vast majority of violations that we see are not done with any intent, but are often oversight or record keeping or other kinds of sort of, how shall I put it, not non-intentional, no bad intent involved. On the other hand, you are also right that the board has discretion in assessing the amount of the penalty to take into account all of the facts and circumstances, and we generally do that. We always do that, and we will do that in this case. Let me turn back to you, Mr. Grandau, to ask if you'd like to respond to anything further.
Sure. Two points. Every system has an audit log. So the fact that Tim and Kyle were not able to find it or have it, I submit that all you need to do is talk to the technical people that actually run the system, and it is there. But that's neither here nor there. As I said, I think the more important part is when it comes to the intent. And Tim never said I had intent to evade. What I'm saying is this is as close as you can come to submitting a report. They admit and they know that I did submit the data. The data was put into the system. Clearly, if I had wanted to try to avoid and stop the public from seeing this kind of information, I never would have put the information into the system, and I wouldn't have included it in the July 15th filing. That's bad intent. Here, worst case scenario, the data was input into the system. And if you want to say that I hit the wrong button, I hit the wrong button. As I said, I've been doing this for a long time. Certainly in the lobby area, I probably submitted, 20, 30, 40,000 filings. Have I hit the wrong button over those 40,000? Sure. Have I done it more than 10 times? I doubt it. So if it occurred here, my apologies. I hope the board will take that into consideration when you determine what penalty would be appropriate.
Your point is that you actually have evidence of good intent.
Correct.
By the presence of that information having been filed, the underlying data having been filed. And
beyond that, I provided to Tim the emails that I had with my client where I specifically notified them that we were in the daily disclosure time period and the report had to be filed on that day, and I needed the information from them to do that filing.
So if I could turn back to CFB counsel for a moment. So the underlying data was timely filed or entered, I should say, but the filing was not filed. Is that correct?
That is correct. The data was entered on June 16th, and the filing was not completed until July 13th, which is, of course, past the election day.
Right, and that's crucially important. The public needs to be able to have easy, ready access. That any member of the public who goes to our database and screens for this information needs to be able to find it. Otherwise, the underlying goal of the rules and the statutes are defeated. But let me ask this: is the filer expected to? Does the filer get a confirmation that the filing went through?
Yes. So when the filer pushes the file with CFB button in the IEDS system, they will have to go through a series of pages before the filing is completed. And the final page is a confirmation that the filing has been completed.
And the filer is expected to look for that confirmation.
Correct. And in this particular case, this was the 6th filing that the Build New York Fund had completed. So it was not the first time. And they had done it successfully before.
So when it was done successfully on, was it July 13th? Was that in response? Sorry?
Sorry, yeah, the July 13th filing was the one where this particular expenditure was finally reported. But I don't have all of the dates right in front of me of the previous filings, but I know that there were 2 as recently as June 10th. So 6 days before this information was entered.
But my question is, did something prompt the proper filing on July 13th? Was it in response to our request or what?
That's when a periodic filing was due. So there would have been a filing due that day regardless.
Okay, thank you.
And the information that I put in that was saved was already sitting there waiting for it on July 15th.
Correct.
Excuse me, but you didn't get a confirmation.
I don't recall a confirmation, but I don't recall looking for a confirmation, sir.
But the filers are expected to look for that. Is that right, Mr. Jude?
Yes.
Just to respond to that, and I don't know if any of the members of the board actually have done compliance filings or have represented people that do them, but when you are involved in that type of electronic filings, and as I said, you know, July 15th is a date when not only your filings are due, but thousands and thousands of lobby filings are due. When you're involved in doing these filings, you're hitting the button and moving on to the next one. That's the reality of it. So if, you know, you're supposed to look for a confirmation, I'm not going to dispute that. Again, I'd love to see the audit log to see what the keystroke was.
Okay, anything for any further questions from members of the board? Anything further that you'd like to say, Mr. Judy or Mr. Grando? All right, I think we've got the facts straight and understand the equities here, and we'll deliberate on it shortly. So thank you all very much for your appearance today, and we'll be back in a little while. Okay, we're going to go into deliberations now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're just waiting for one more board member.
Yes, trying to find her. Member Sproggins, if you're in the attendees, if you could raise your hand, that would be helpful.
I have someone working on the technical issues.
Okay.
Okay, Matt, if you could promote the final board member, she has resolved her technical problems.
Yeah, she should be coming online now.
I think we're ready.
Yeah, we're all there.
All right, so the board has deliberated with respect to the 3 enforcement matters that are on our agenda for today, and I think we'll do these one at a time. The first is the Build New York Fund, which was an independent spender in the 2021 election cycle. The alleged violation is failure to file. the board proposes to find a violation of failure to file and to impose a penalty of $6,250. I move that finding and that penalty. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. The next item is the campaign of Jumani Williams from 2017. This is the board proposes to find the following violations and impose the following penalties. 1, failing to report transaction, a violation but no penalty. 2, filing late disclosure statements, $200. 3, accepting over the limit contributions, $10,860. 4, accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships, $610. 5, accepting a contribution from an unregistered political committee, $300. 6, commingling campaign funds with funds accepted for a different election, $250. 7, filing a late response to the draft audit report, $454, for total penalties of $12,674. I move we find those violations and impose those penalties. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Finally, with respect to the campaign of Anthony Alexis, a special election in 2019 for City Council District 45, we propose to find the following violations and impose the following penalties. 1, failing to demonstrate compliance with cash receipts reporting and documentation requirements, $460. 2, failing to document a transaction, violation, no penalty. 3, accepting an over the limit contribution, $375, for total penalties of $835. I move we make those findings and impose those penalties. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. That concludes our public business for today. I'll therefore move that we go into executive session, and as we have no matters to report back on or vote on in public session, that we adjourn directly from the executive session. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Some other ayes there? Ayes, okay. Nays, abstentions. The motion carries. We're done for today. Thank you very much.